Yeah, well, we came last night and did the track walk this morning, and obviously was pretty impressed by just the way that the track looked, and really after driving it, the way that it flowed and everything that we did in the simulator. I think it lays out well. So I think there's a lot of excitement and buzz, and when you create this kind of event to come into in a weekend, everybody kind of wants to see how it goes and what happens. So it's there's a lot of intrigue, and I think that's really part of what makes a great event.
Bob Hawkers, Fox Sports. Was there anything that you saw, and maybe if you've talked to other drivers, saw during your track walk that you would ask NASCAR to potentially tweak for tomorrow?
I think most of them that were here yesterday covered pretty much everything. So they moved some tire packs and changed some. I think the big talk was the brake markers. Trying to make them something a little more visible. They put some orange tape around the brake marker signs to try to make them a little bit more visible. And so really, I think other than small things like that, you just kind of have to wait and see what the race looks like. Obviously, Xfinity practice looked pretty decent, and it looks like the cars have good grip, and so we'll just have to wait and see how it races and kind of make adjustments from there, I would assume.
All right, Lee.
You made your Cup debut in 2001. Could you imagine 2 decades later doing something like this? I mean, it's you walk down the Michigan Avenue and it's like it's just so big and impressive, and you're so used to being racing places in rural areas of nothing of this magnitude.
Well, it was just so much different when I started because of that. Racing at new racetracks in the middle of nowhere was exciting, and I think with the way that the evolution of the sport has evolved into doing things differently. We've raced inside of football stadiums. We've raced on street courses now. We've been on dirt. All things raced in the rain. All things that I would have thought you were crazy for, and pretty much everybody would have thought you were crazy for it at that particular time. So it's just it's a constant evolution of trying to make things different and exciting, and I think we live in it's a much different world that we live in, much different attention span of those watching for the most part, and I think it requires a constant change and evolution to keep it fresh and exciting. So I think as you go through this weekend, I think it opens a lot of doors for us. I think we opened a lot of doors for ourselves when we went to the Coliseum, and now you just got to figure out how to find that balance of how much you want to do things like this and the Coliseum, and whether dirt is right or wrong, or is it a different track, what moves the needle. And I think that's really what ultimately makes this event a success, or I don't know that you can make it a failure at this particular point, but how much of a success this particular event is just measured on new eyeballs, intrigue from television viewers and things like that.
They're advertising it as an event, as a musical and racing event. Do we need more events? Do we need, at the existing places, do we need to make them more of an event?
Well, I think let's just take Sonoma, for example. When we first went to Sonoma, nobody wanted to go. Now it's one of our destination races because you can talk your other half into going somewhere that they may not particularly want to be to watch a race, but there's other things to do. And, whether it's a concert or a race, you can kind of find that middle ground to do something different with multiple things to do at the event. So it allows you to have a compromise with the people who don't want to be at the race in order to have other things happening in a cool city. And, not only the event that we have, but there's also a lot of other things to do right here. It's not like you got to drive an hour to get to the city or go to a baseball game or whatever it may be. There's a lot of things that you can check boxes with in activities of things to do.
All right, our next question will go to Daniel McFadden, and then Jonathan and Dustin. Go ahead, Daniel.
Daniel McFadden, frontstretch.com. Kevin, with this track as a driver, do you think there's any danger to maybe overthinking this track? With it is a road course, but with slightly different parameters?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. My road racing street course ability is one event, and it was 1999 around the LA Coliseum. So, and I think that as we've gone through all this, to me, this one looks easier just because you can connect the dots, and it's everybody's starting with the same experience level. It's not something where you can go and drive other cars or have a racing past of things that you've done. I think the good road racers are still going to rise to the top, but for me, with all the markers and the simplicity of the way that everything lays out, I think you can connect the dots and still do pretty good. So it's different than, say, going to Road America for the first time, where you've got a bunch of guys who have raced there in the Xfinity Series or raced there in other cars and have experience there, or whatever the case may be. It's we're all starting from scratch, and for me, I feel more comfortable with where we're going to start than where we did at, say, Road America. The only thing I really remember is that we ran through a big gutter and it would rip the rocker panels off. So we're one step above that here so far today, from what I've seen.
All right, Jonathan, go ahead.
Thank you. Kevin, right over here. So you've had Jensen Button around the Ford SHR sphere. Has he been a help for this weekend, or how has it been just having him around?
Yeah, I haven't spent much time around Jensen. I've had one conversation with him in the two races. So, I don't think his experience can hurt anything. I think as we go through the whole process, it'll be interesting. I've not sat at any of the competition meetings or anything with him. So, I think as we do that tomorrow, it'll be interesting to hear his feedback, but definitely can't hurt.
And after walking around the track and seeing the different characteristics of it and the different specifics, how do you think the sim time that you spend is going to translate over to the real racing?
Well, really, the biggest thing for me is just memorizing the track. I think that's the what direction am I coming up on next, and so that'll be the most important thing to me is getting all the new markers on the actual racetrack. I think the lap time will be a little bit faster than what we practiced at in our simulator. So just memorizing those markers and getting comfortable with exactly where I need to be in the braking zones and how wide the racetrack is, which corner's coming up next, where all the bumps are. That'll be the main thing for me, is to memorize all that stuff in the first 50.
All right, we're going to go Dustin, Nate, and then Kelly, and then we have a question over here. Go ahead, Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. I believe you were in the room when I asked Chase about the restart zone here, and I'm just curious your feelings about it, and I'm assuming you heard him talk about, the way COTA ended from his viewpoint was embarrassing for everybody involved. If you kind of felt the same way about that situation, and if this is maybe a way to kind of solve the problem.
Yeah, I think the theory was to spread the cars out more, getting into turn one. So it seemed to work well at some of the racetracks like Portland and places that the place that we've seen it so far. Sonoma didn't really have that same type of problem with the way that it's laid out. So hopefully, I think when you look at Portland, it allowed the cars to get spread out and not have that huge effect of 4 or 5 cars nose to tail, and so. It's a tough balance just because of the fact that the car is so durable. I think it's tough just because the car will do that, and you start to get frustrated and participate just because you at some point probably were on the other end of it getting spun out, and so it's it's a fine balance.
Again, Ryan Blaney's incident into a concrete barrier. I know NASCAR's talked about, they're going to move forward and look at other tracks, but just from a driver's perspective, to see something like that happen, is there a frustration, or is there an understanding of cars are going to find different spots and can't get everything covered, or that's not a good excuse? Yeah,
I don't think that's a good excuse. I think that spot should have been covered. We've gone to some of these new racetracks and had bare walls, and I think that's probably just needs to be done a little bit more aggressively in order to make those situations right. It's just a firm reminder that we can hit anything, anywhere. it's just, you're not guarding for the everyday accidents. Obviously, it helps them, but you're guarding for the weird incidents like we had with Kyle Busch at Daytona, and Ryan's was very similar to that. So I think that's really what you're looking for. So definitely needs to be a little bit more thorough on that side of airing too much, not enough.
All right, we're going to go to Nate and then Kelly. Go ahead, Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Kevin, when Chase was in here, he said that he was kind of pleasantly surprised how good the course looked, given all the logistics and everything that needed to happen with the fence and concrete barriers and all the stuff they'd put in. And he said that gave him confidence that NASCAR could do this in other cities. Your perspective on that is did you arrive and think, wow, this is in better shape than I expected? And does this give you a sense that, like, hey, NASCAR maybe can do this more often? Or is it, coming out of the Clash in Wilkesboro, is this kind of the direction NASCAR's already been moving and you guys knew they could do this?
Well, I'm fairly certain they own all the barriers, so it definitely opens the door to being able to do this type of event in other spots. I think you just have to measure the success and how far it moves the needle and know that you may not have to spend as much money because you don't have to buy the barriers next time, but the amount of money that's being spent to put this event on, there has to be a level of I guess excitement that moves the needle in order to keep doing that. So I think it definitely, you have to start somewhere and you have to step out of that box and do things differently. And I think we have a lot of room to still explore and do things and show our product off in different cities to different people. I think they told us there was over 80% of the fans here this weekend will be people who have never watched a NASCAR race. So yeah, if you're going to grow the sport, you're going to have to do stuff like this. And I'm the same when I walk the track. And luckily, Julie was the last person that I saw before we walked across the track. They've just done a good job. And it flowed well on the simulator, and I'm sure it looks like it flowed well in practice. For the Xfinity cars, and I don't expect anything different with our cars. So it's been, from the time I walked in the hotel and the way that it was organized and structured, and it felt like old school NASCAR to me. With the things that have happened since I've walked off the plane to come into the racetrack, into the hotel, and into the racetrack, and so it's been a great experience so far.
All right, we're going to go to Kelly. Just a heads up, we have about 5 minutes left with Kevin, so we're going to get to as many people as we can, but if you can help me with not asking a lot of questions at once, that is helpful. Thank you.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Kevin, is this an event that you have to come to with just an open mind? There's been so much talk and hype, everything leading into this event. Obviously, it's so different. Do you try to come here and just give it a chance before coming in with maybe preconceived notions of how it's going to be?
I think you have to, because I made the mistake at the Clash the first time we went and said, I thought it was going to be a disaster, and it turned into a great event and great race. And I think you have to just do it because you just don't know. You just don't know how these types of things are going to turn out. So an open mind definitely is better than walking in just trying to figure out how to make it fail and trying to figure out all the flaws in it, because there are going to be things that probably don't go 100% right. But going through all these new type of events kind of changes your mindset to how you approach it, because you see the enthusiasm, right? Like you can feel it, you can see it. You definitely don't have this many colleagues sitting in your press room on a weekly basis. So there's obviously something different this week that moves the needle.
Real quick, I just wanted to know, because this is so different, you're racing in a city, the sight lines, everything around the track is so different. Will you have a chance, can you even take that in from the car of being up against buildings and different things like that?
Well, it's obviously going to be different, but I think once you fall out of those first few laps and you start to pick up all those reference points, it'll just settle into, the next corner. So that's I think the part that as a competitor you kind of fall into this trap of not really enjoying the surroundings and all the things that go with that. I think you'll probably see some cool pictures of things as you come out of the event and realize, just the magnitude of coolness that went along with what we're getting ready to do.
All right, we'll go Jerry and then to Jay. Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, kicking the tires.net. Just looking ahead real quick to Loudon. You won 3 of the last 8 there. What's so good about that track that no matter what the package is, that you run strong?
Yeah, it's just been a great. Our flat track stuff has been really good. Our short track stuff has always been really good. And I think as we go, this year our short track stuff is in the same category. So it's definitely a racetrack that we're looking forward to going to, and I can't wait to finally, hopefully, get to victory lane. It's after Nashville having the fastest car and having a tire go flat, and Phoenix and a couple of the other places where it just seems like it all hasn't come together. But they're doing a great job of putting fast cars on the racetrack, and Loudon is one of those places that just checks a lot of boxes in order for us to go up there and hopefully have a good weekend.
All right, we'll go Jay and then Jordan. Go ahead, Jay.
Hi, Kevin. Jay Cohen, Associated Press. We've heard from a couple of drivers so far that the sponsor interest in this race in particular was pretty high. Did you experience in that? And in your experience, and how much of that has to do with just being in this market and all the activation possibilities and being in the city that's such a business center?
I'm spoiled. Our sponsors have been in place for a long time, but I know that the Gear Wrench group that is on the car, they brought a lot of people and have activated throughout the weekend. We don't have a lot of activity outside of that, but I know that there's a lot of intrigue, from people wanting to watch, and you get the question of what do you think it's going to be like, and it's come up several times in our meet and greets over the last several weeks. So there's a lot of intrigue there. Our sponsor stuff has just been in place for a long time.
Go ahead, Jordan.
The Athletic, when you look at the 36 race schedule, if you could, how would you kind of lay it out in terms of the balance between super speedways, short tracks, intermediates, road courses, street courses, etc., in terms of the number of races you kind of would see, at each kind of type of track?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that obviously the road course number is going up. It seems like everybody wants to have more short tracks and things that go along with that side of the world. So I think you have a lot of room to be flexible with whatever is the hot ticket, right? I think that's the most important thing. What's the hot ticket? What's going to put the most butts in the grandstands and the most eyeballs on TV? So if it's short tracks and street courses, then we need to migrate to a few more of those, and I think there's still a lot of room for Canada and Mexico and a lot of things in North America to move to that we have been at before. And Montreal was always one of the marquee races. It opened up a different fund from the sponsorship side and was always full of people. So I think there's a lot of room to move stuff around, especially from places that have a couple of dates that traditionally don't have the best crowds and could be good one race tracks. Well, you know me, I'd change everything all the time. So, yeah, if it was me, Chicago is going to be a great city, but I'd say I'll see you guys in about 5 years. You can be excited about it for the next 4, and we'll be back, through the rotation. And I'd rotate the championship race and the playoff races and create some sort of system that made sure that there was enough road courses and short tracks and everything in the last 10. But I'd move them all. There's traditional races like the Daytona 500 and the Southern 500, and I guess there's really not many more than that. I got the Coke 600, maybe the Bristol Summer Race, and everything from there would be free game. And I'd make sure that the markets and racetracks are held accountable to have the proper amount of people in the seats, and if it's not going the way that it should, then move them around.